right. Hello and welcome. Thank you for attending this webinar right now. And the main focus for us is to help folks, specifically people of color, get access to capital that's so needed in order to scale businesses and take them to the next level. And I'm honored to have the opportunity to speak to you all. And I'm actually really honored to have one of my close friends, Howard Football. He used to knock people out from linebacker position. And now he's actually the Senior Director of Social Equity at Parallel. And there he leads efforts to create opportunities for equal access to economic empowerment through the cannabis industry by developing and executing a holistic, consistent approach to company-wide initiatives for social equity. I'm super excited to have my guy, James Jackson, on the line. James, welcome, and thank you for jumping on tonight.
No, I appreciate you for having me, Todd, and I appreciate your kind words. I'm excited to be a part of this. I'm trying my best to start my video so you don't have to look at my name for the entire thing, but we're gonna get it figured out at some point. Yeah, I'm excited for this evening. I'm excited to speak with you all and hopefully look forward to seeing you in New Orleans.
And last but not least, we have my business partner and my attorney. So when you want to make it real, get your lawyer on the phone. You got Brandon Wyatt. He is a business attorney, civil rights attorney, and an MBA. So a very knowledgeable guy. Together, we have reviewed over 500 companies and raised over $25 million for specifically cannabis companies in general. I'm not saying that's a big number, but actually it helps out when it comes to getting businesses started and going forward. So I'm excited to have my brother and business partner online, Brandon Wyatt. What's going on, Brandon?
Hey, everybody. I'm excited to be here, humbled to be here, grateful to be here. Another day serving the community is another day living in my purpose. So thank you guys for attending. Ready to do some great work today.
All right, let's work. So a few ground rules. I always like to set ground rules before we start anything. The first one is to check your ego at the door, right? Your ego can be your biggest helper or your biggest holdback, right? So we want to make sure that you remove that ego, start with a blank slate. Listen up. You may know some of these things, but also there may be some jewels that the team is able to drop to make sure that you're good for the competition. The second one is there's no question is a bad question. So make sure that you use the question feature. I see some folks are already asking questions now. We'll try to answer those throughout the webinar, but no question is a bad question. Don't feel afraid to open up. And the last piece is the enemy is not in the room. Right. And so when we're out here, we're doing this work in order to uplift everyone and give everyone an opportunity to do well. So this is a focused effort that we put together. Hopefully we get some good nuggets for you, and we're going to go from there. So first and foremost, this webinar is called Spark Up Your Pitch, right? Little corny cliche that we put in there, but ultimately we have a pitch competition going on. It's called the Hot Box. It's the second instantiation of it. The first one was in Washington, D.C. It was a great endeavor. A number of folks actually won some partnerships, money, and some mentorship from some large cannabis companies. So we wanted to bring it back, and we partnered up with Parallel to do that. And ultimately, we want to take this time to talk through some of the key elements of what Parallel and our judges will be looking for at the pitch competition. All right, so we're going to jump right into it. All right, so when it comes down to pitching, right, the first thing you want to be able to do is give people a reason to believe, give people a reason to believe you, and give investors the reason to buy from you, okay? And when you're up on the stage and you're creating a pitch deck, or if you have slides with you, you want to make sure that you don't do a few things. One, put too much words or text on the screen, be monotone. You don't want to read from a script or read the slides like I'm doing right now. But ultimately, you want to be really focused in giving them the authentic, genuine you, right? You want to make sure that you're believable and that you really have some skin in the game when it comes to the pitch that you're looking to give. So that's just a high level understanding. If you're going to use a deck, please make sure that you follow these key rules. We'll provide this deck once we get off this call. But ultimately, we wanted to make sure that you are aware of some of the things that can put your presentation off automatically without even getting into the actual pitch. All right, so we got James on the line. So I just want to kind of interweave some of the things that we have going here. And before we even get started with this piece, I want to ask James, why is Parallel even interested, and yourself even interested in supporting small businesses in getting into the cannabis industry with some financial resources and with some mentorship?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, it's well known that, you know, and Parallel recognizes that, you know, the biggest barrier to entry to get in the cannabis space or cannabis ancillary spaces is specifically, you know, access to capital, right? And we know for a fact in the Black and brown communities, that tends to be even more tough for us to be able to raise these type of funds, to be able to put together these companies, to have the resources to pay for resources like lawyers and things of that nature. So, I mean, from our perspective, you know, a more diverse industry is the only correct thing, right? If you look at cannabis, it's backwards, right? The folks that did the time, started the industry, had to pay the brunt for it, unfortunately are not reaping the benefits of that, right? And that's mostly because of, you know, we can go into a million things of why it is, but it comes down to a main thing, which is access to capital, right? So, you know, we want this Hotbox pitch competition to be that incubator program that allows, you know, these companies to get, you know, that highlight, right? That allows the companies to be celebrated, that allows these companies to get access to resources that frankly they may or may not have right now, right? So that is the main purpose of this, and I think it's awesome that we're going to be able to kick things off in New Orleans, which is an amazing city. But for us, this is a program, and for me, this is a program that we have designed to be able to go around the country, right? To be able to be that incubator program that allows people to get in front of people they may not be able to on their own volition, right? It allows us to give access to people that can give access to other people to help all these entrepreneurs' dreams become a reality.
Absolutely. And so what you just did was identify the problem. The problem that we have right now is that Black and brown folks don't have access to capital. They don't have access to mentorship, and Parallel is bringing that to the table. So the first thing that we want to make sure that we highlight for the audience and for the folks that are preparing to pitch is the need to identify a real problem. And when you're identifying that problem, you have to tell a real story. Words are very important. And I got my guy, Brandon Wyatt, on the line. He is big on words and why words are important and why telling stories are important. Brandon, can you give like a quick overview of why storytelling is so important when you're getting up to pitch your business? After you come off mute.
On mute. So first of all, I just went on Instagram a little bit to document and record, because telling a story to your peers, to your community is important. So I'm going to stop that, put that down. While you're here, words are important. This is artistry, business meets science, meets community activism, meets banking. And how someone is able to effectuate efficiently who they are, where they want to go, and how someone can get along and be excited about that is a skill set. And it's something from the inflection of your voice to the mannerisms to what you wear. Investment capital is subjective. You know, you can see a horse and is won 20 races in a row. But if someone doesn't like the way that horse looks, or the number that horse has on, number 3 is bad luck, they're not going to vote on you. So being able to tell a story, why number 3 is great, why these 20 wins in a row matter, why you matter, why your company matters, where you're going for the future, succinctly, effectively, and with great description and creativity is super important to gaining money.
Absolutely. Gaining money is the plan. So a couple key tips that we wanted to make sure you knew as you go into the pitch competition is telling the story, as Brandon just highlighted, and really, like I said, be genuine and authentic as to why you are behind the business. Have you given up everything and stopped working just to do this business? Are you solely doing this for revenue? How much energy and passion have you put into this work? How long have you been doing it, right? And who are you solving the problem for? What is the problem that they may have, right? You want to highlight some things. I know a company before that was doing some cannabis testing, right? There's heavy metals, there's mold, there's pesticides and products. And you know, most times you have no clue where your product is coming from. So a company could stand up and say, would you feel comfortable putting this heavy metal into your system? Well, we have a solution for you. We're identifying that problem and we're going to work through that through XYZ, right? And then understand how big the problem is and use data and statistics in order to make sure that you are aware of the size of the market that you're going into. So it's really good to set yourself up, do your research in advance, and when you get up on a stage, feel free to use graphs and numbers and metrics, because that shows that you're doing your due diligence when it comes to identifying the problem. All right, moving forward, the solution, right? Your product, the big reveal. You want to understand each element of the product, why that product is effective in the way that it works. And when we say product, it can be a product and or a service. So if you were to use the tagline, hey, I'm here to put weed maps out of business, right? You're going to get the judge's ear, right? And then you have to break down how would you specifically put them out of business, and have you already gained some traction in the industry or the market that you're stepping into. So make sure that you're very detailed and you understand the product and service that you're going to be delivering. When it comes to you, James, I know you have a supplier diversity aspect at Parallel. Are there any products in particular or services in particular that Parallel is interested in hearing about at the pitch competition?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say anything is off the table, right? I would say, you know, listen, the cannabis industry is so vast. There's so many different, you know, niches, so many different specific avenues that you can go into that I don't think that anything is necessarily off the table. What I would say you know, immediately and just is, you know, somewhere where we probably could use strengthening, right? Or somewhere that we maybe don't focus, that could allow us to either expand our reach or be a little bit more broad in what our current offering is, right? So currently, you know, in the Massachusetts market, in Boston, where I am right now, you know, we have connected with a number of social equity operators. And I think people, you know, look at that from a standpoint to say, you know, we're doing the right thing, but it's not that at all. Like, you also have to understand there's a business side to this as well, right? What I help people understand is that by us bringing in new offerings and making our options greater than they were before, we have the opportunity to tap into a different market than we had before, right? We have different products that those cultivators, those processors, those manufacturers have a different following than we currently have in Netta in Massachusetts, right? So like, not only is it 100% the right thing to do, but it makes business sense. And I think that's the biggest thing that you should be thinking about in putting together your pitch is, you know, is this going to make business sense to who I'm pitching to? Is it going to be easy for them to understand? Is it going to be easy for them to comprehend? And then I think in addition to kind of what you're saying around, you know, around product or what's solving the problem is like, are there any outside factors that may help or hinder what's going on, right? We know overall regulation in the cannabis industry is moving towards, you know, helping, in some ways hindering, right? But what is going to affect that? And I think that's the main thing you have to look at from that scope as well, to see what's the viability of a company or what you're creating.
And Brandon, what types of solutions are you looking for from some of the folks that are pitching? Help them, get their creative juices flowing. They don't have to be a full operational business. It can be an idea as long as you have a well thought out idea. And this team will give funding and mentorship to help get that to the next level. What are you thinking about, Brandon, for some of these companies?
Well, honestly, I think about, what level of technology and what level of process improvement, what level of life improvement that folks can devise and bring to the field of cannabis. We're down in New Orleans, an amazing city, amazing region. Thinking about all the historical cotton conferences and things that spread from there, Birmingham and Atlanta back in the day, and thousands of inventions, thousands and thousands of minority inventors that came together to design the cures for common diseases, the cures for common ailments around the household. Sometimes we think a lot larger than necessary, right? So from packaging that's innovative, that's fresh, that allows things to happen, from nice, someone invented an LED roll tray at one point, down to spectrum analyzers. We think about Ardent Cannabis that won our pitch competition back, I don't know, 2014 or something like that. And is an amazing company. So being able to take household understandings, normal understandings, traditional understandings, and how people need to consume this medicine or transport this product, software, technology companies 10x faster than anyone else. Why? Because of the growth of data. Being able to manage data, being able to manage people, being able to manage resources in innovative ways is one of the more dangerous fields, honestly, to get into. But it's something that folks really can peer in and come up with an idea, a tracking system, or a patient registry, or things that really matter that influence the industry. So there's so many areas and so many things that, and I'm going to say this, sorry to talk a little long with it, so many things that are done where people think you have to make stuff really complicated. One of the gripes I have, and if anybody's ever met me, I see some good folks in the chat, like Todd, so he knows me. I gripe about things like Meta, Facebook. MySpace was better than Facebook. For years, there's no way that Facebook was better than MySpace. Facebook actually took away things that MySpace gave you. You were able to make your own web page on MySpace and create everything and use HTML and all this stuff. In fact, you even had a MySpace / Brandon the Cool Guy account. Hopefully that's still up somewhere. But when you look at Facebook, it took all that away, right? It modeled the white pages. It didn't even one picture. Where's your school? Where's this? Where's that? And that's it. But the ingenious of even taking a nationwide petition and convincing folks to force their schools to give that not patient registry, that ID list, so that folks can log on to the system to just be a part of a telephone registry, no less, not even create real web pages, is what people wanted. They wanted simpler access. And so when we think about pitches and we think about competitions and all the ways that people want to make stuff more complicated, I want to find a person that wants to make something super simple, because that's probably the person who's going to win. Novel
products, absolutely. And you mentioned Chanel Lindsay, the decarb oxalator, won back in 2014, is now on cannabis commissions and taking the game over. So, you can come to an event like this and get your start, right? And get into the network. And as long as you are true to yourself and, are able to really show that you're able to critically think about what a good product would be for the market. So great points, gentlemen. And the last thing on this is, if you have a product, if you have something tangible, you have something real, don't be afraid to demo it, to bring it, to show it, to allow people to touch it, to see that it's real. I think that's very important to win over the judges in this competition. All right, next slide. All right, your business model. How will you make dollars? How do you make money with your business? A lot of people have really great ideas. They have concepts. They bring them to the table. They say all these great things about the product, but how do you get that product to market? And how will you win over the consumer? Because that's the most important aspect. So just keeping that in mind, James, business model wise, from your perspective, right now, where do you feel that, I mean, you only been at Parallel not too long, but where do you feel like there's some areas where there could be some refinement and some of these folks can come up with some cool ideas to help, you know, take your company to the next level?
Yeah, and I think what Brandon touched on earlier was spot on. I mean, I think one of the spaces that still has opportunity for a ton of growth is just the technology space, is the space that essentially supports the industry. And that can be from a number of different, you know, perspectives, right? I mean, there's technology that procurement uses, right? That tracks who all of their suppliers are. I just so happen to know that there's not a lot that have the ability to track who their diverse suppliers are, which often turns into a manual process, right? I mean, you could think about technology from so many different perspectives, whether it's, you know, I know there's tons of you know, seed to sale technology out there, but I still feel like some of the technology that's out there is not necessarily a fit for everybody, and they kind of just make it work for them. That's what I've seen a lot from different operators, not just Parallel, right? So for me, if I had to narrow down or say one category, I would say the technology space, the space that supports the industry, and that's from all angles.
Okay, and Brandon, from your perspective, what is a business model? And hopefully this can help folks wrap their minds around what the judges are going to be looking for.
I thought you'd never ask, sir. Kind sir, what is a business? I mean, I challenge people. I mean, some of the crazy stuff we do in our ideation sessions is Entrevation. Some of the things we do to develop companies is ask a question, and I'm going to give it to you guys. So it's a little bit of our IP here. But when do you have a business? After you make your first sale or before? When is it a company? When someone pays you to do something, or when you plan for someone to pay you to do something? Some businesses start because it works. You know, some hustles start because they work, right? There's a difference. So when you talk about a business model, we're talking about repeatable processes, things that align to save yourself significant time, energy, and money. Systems. Todd's a master of systems. He developed master of systems for people. James Jackson's a master of people running through systems and understanding what Ms. Atkins does to a high degree, similar performance management of people. So if the business model is moving people, then how is that repeatable? If the business model is improving technology, how is the R&D on that technology repeatable? How is the process to get that technology to market repeatable? And when you look at operational models, how do you identify where the things don't work? I'm from the South. Some things just don't do what they're supposed to do. If it ain't doing what it's supposed to do, as Ray Charles said, you got to show on paper how you gonna make it do what it do, baby. And so it's very real about a model and being able to use that to disprove where people think that your product will actually fail. Showing them that it's a model, showing them the systems, and showing them how it does what it does.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, gents. Moving on to the next slide to keep this going. The market. So it's really important to understand the size of your market and which piece of the pie you can capture, right? Everyone is not a market. So don't think that you're saying, hey, my product is for every single mother, father, daughter, grandmother, whatever, right? It's going to be for a specific niche. And you want to monopolize that niche, right? You want to start in a small market, capture as much of it as you can, and then scale from there. So you really need to understand the demographic and the psychographic of the people that your product or service is going to be for, right? So keep that in mind and make sure that there's at least a slide that highlights your understanding of the market that you're going after. James, what markets are you currently in at Parallel?
Yeah, so we are in Florida, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania. We currently are partners technically in Nevada, and Texas medical as well.
Perfect. And so those are all the areas where people have, the opportunity to potentially support, specifically in Boston right now where you are, that portion of the business is going to be focused in on some of these products and potentially, partnering and working with the folks that win the pitch competition. So that's super, super awesome. So do your research on the markets that Parallel is in to make sure that you are looking at the details and demographics of those markets in general.
Yeah.
All right, competition. So you need to know who your competitors are, and there's a need to know who those competitors are, and it's very important. Some entrepreneurs sit back and say, I have no competition. I'm my own competition. That's a lie. And others say, major companies are their competition, and there's no way that they're gonna disrupt and move them. So you got to be very strategic and understand how you can insert yourself into the market and what niche you have, and what value proposition you present to the individuals. Brandon, when it comes to value proposition, how can the pitchers have a set themselves apart when they identify what their value proposition is, and what is a value proposition to you?
What is a value proposition? First of all, what is unique? Once again, when you look at the words here, what is being unique? Does that mean it's crazy, it's quirky, no one's ever seen it before? Or does that mean it's customized, tailored, specifically aligned to a set demographic, set target, set client base that can be parsed and culled and repeated? So uniqueness doesn't just mean something off the wall or a color they've never seen. Uniqueness also can be custom, right? Your customized value proposition, right? Your personalized value proposition, your niche, your craft, as some things were saying, cannabis, value proposition. And the value, once again, is understanding who your customer is, who are your clients. These are things that we teach and things that right now we're trying to teach at a high level with a lot of good business minds. So for me, it's not difficult, but I don't want to miss out that each one of these words we're saying are terms of art. Who are your client? Who is your client for this product? What is the value proposition to that client? What is the value proposition of the product to the market? What is the value proposition of how your product affects the market? What's the value proposition to the market? Are there different clients? What's the client personas? Is there a different value proposition to the mom versus the dad in the household, and how does it affect the children, right? Then ultimately, what's your investor value proposition, right? Another one. How do they get their return on investment? So value proposition, customization, personalization, unique craft, all relate to understanding, once again, your business model deeper, who it applies to, and ultimately a question that we have to ask first often is, who is your client? Who are you serving them?
Absolutely. And moving forward to traction. All right. So when a judge or investor is looking at your pitch, they really want to understand, have you tested it? I'm an engineer, scientist by trade. So my background is data and really understanding if a product in and of itself, or if a person in and of itself has penetrated a market and gained some kind of traction. So if there's some way that you can show, hey, I've had this many users, or we've had X amount of sales in this amount of time, right? Those things are very important. And you also need to understand what your exit plan is, right? Or how you plan to scale the business to a point where it becomes sustainable over time. When we talk about scale, we talk about some systems, like Brandon said, saving yourself significant time, energy, and money. What systems have you created? What things have you put in place? What strategic partnerships have you established? How have you kind of engaged your customer and listened to what they had to say about the business? Make sure that when you're giving your pitch, you're articulating how you've established that traction and where you want to be in that market. So Brandon, scale, what does it look like for a business to scale?
It's like Spider-Man. What do you mean? It's like when Spider-Man goes off the wall, right? I don't know. That's funny. I don't know. I'm kind of corny, but that's what scale is to me. Like you see a wall and climb over it, right?
Get over it.
Scaling something. I'm an old Army veteran, guys. So some of the terms and some of the things that folks say for my demographic means some different things. A scale, how much does stuff weigh? We're talking about here, you know, it's cannabis, it's pounds, baby. We got the pounds. But no, scale for business, how you get over walls and how heavy you are in the game. How do you grow over time? How does the weight of what your product brings to market? How does the weight of your effect on the market grow over time? How does it scale? How does it get over the wall, the second year failure? 80% of all businesses fail. And how many years, Todd? How many years does it take?
3 to 5, man. They fell in 3 to 5. So you say I'm 2 years in, and at the end of the day, you still
They couldn't scale the wall.
You
Yeah,
couldn't scale the wall.
Over the wall. So it's, I say these things and we joke and it's funny. I think it's funny. I think it's funny. But I make these kind of jokes so people can get in their head. People want to know how you're going to get over the wall. They want to know how you're going to make sure that you can meet any obstacle and take it on. So when you hear it from a wily old veteran, what do I think when I hear scale? I think of climbing over stuff. And for some people, scale means their business just getting bigger. For me, scale in business means attacking and accomplishing your metrics, getting over every wall set in front of you.
Absolutely. Great founders set their pace and they say what they're going to do and they get it done. They be formidable. So absolutely. When you come to a pitch, you always have to have your ask and understand how much you're willing to give up for that ask. And once you get the dollars that you're asking for, what will it be used for? So make sure that you have that in mind and have thought that out, because investors are going to ask that question. And so I believe I skipped a section in it, and it talked about team and making sure that you highlight who your team is, and investors invest in the jockey and not the horse. And they want to know specifically why you got into this market. How come, or how do you have domain expertise? What have you done to gain that expertise? Why did you select this particular product or service to provide? And what makes your team the team to really deliver against all others? So you need to make sure that those things are in place. So we kind of went through the key elements of what a pitch needs to have, the problem, a solution, highlights of what your product is. Do you understand your market? Do you have traction in your market? Who's on your team? Is it just you, or do you have other folks that contribute? Some folks say you need to have a technical founder and then a business-minded founder that knows how to go out there and make things work. And when it comes down to it, making sure you know what you're asking for and how you're going to use that within your business is very, very, very important. So what we're going to do is we're going to wrap up, take questions, and then allow James and Brandon to give their last pieces here. And I'm really hoping that we're going to see you in New Orleans on the 18th, 19th, and 20th. Folks are going to have the opportunity to pitch in front of some great investors and really get some good feedback is really what we want to do and help shape and mold. I got my shirt on, it says, rest in peace, Nipsey Hussle. The marathon continues. And, this is definitely not a sprint. You're going to have to do pitches in front of tons of people. And so you got to continue to run your marathon, run your race, and stay in. So with that, we got a question from Tahid. How do you calculate distribution reach / estimate potential market reach for something like putting your 3.5 grams flower product in a new city? Can
I do it?
Legally. Yup, Brandon, go ahead.
So it's kind of like when we look at context clues for math, the math problem, the algorithm, how many patients? So first of all, question is, what kind of market is it? Open access market, open source market. If not, then how many patients, how many people can get to the product? Once you go to how many people can get to the product, we also go with how much does it cost to produce the product? What is the average cost in the region, right? So most people say, well, we don't know how to determine average cost of region for a new market. Well, a new market is going to be shaped like other markets. How much money does the state have? How large is the state? What's the state population? Those items, when you look at a state like Michigan, who opened up a rec market, people knew Michigan was going to be big because Michigan's budget, Michigan's population. Michigan also had a legacy market. So using those context clues, using the understanding of if it's a patient market, a rec market, using the economies of scale, noting how many patients over time will grow, how many competitors are in the market. If you're, a cultivator, because clearly if we're talking about 3-5s, maybe cultivating, but if you're talking about 3-5s, you may be a dispensary. So how many dispensaries are in the market? What is the ease of a patient getting reciprocity with other states? How close are you to another state? How many locations are you going to order to corner the market? There's so many different small questions that can go into how to value a 3-5 for a new market that hasn't come there, but is really based on comparing the old markets and then specifying, customizing, uniquely crafting into the demographics and assumptions of that state, that individual market, that region, down to that zip code. How many people have money in that zip code? Is that the highest tax bracket in the zip code? Because you'll probably sell 3-5 higher there in a higher tax bracket zip code than a lower one. So so many things, but so very easy. Just write everything down and assess it.
Assumptions are important. Assumptions, actions, and assurances, right? You can assume what the market looks like, but you need to take action, go and gather that data, right? And then assurances, you want to validate your product with the folks in the area. So James, you raised your hand. Did you have something to add to that?
Nah, that was by accident. I could not have broken that down any further than
I'm about to say,
Wyatt. So.
All right. And Charity asked, are there any advantages or disadvantages for the virtual pitchers? I don't think so, but I do think, I'll say it like this. If you have a great business idea, you have a great pitch, you show your problem, you understand it, you understand the market, and you can do that in a 2-3 minute video, I think you would have an opportunity to win no matter what. When it comes down to in person, I think that being able to network and get the direct feedback from the judges real time, I think that's gonna be better for you, but I don't think it's better for your chances to win. So I think that you have the opportunity if you can come. I know it's New Orleans, it's expensive, it's all that, but ultimately there's definitely an advantage of being in person because you have a lot more time to spend, and you might not get investment from Parallel. It might be another company or another group that's sitting in the audience listening in. So that's all I had to say on that one. And how long are the in-person pitches? We really don't want to go no longer than 7 minutes, because in that first 7 minutes, you'll be able to make sure people know who you are, believe you, believe in your product or believe in your service, or to generate a whole bunch of questions to break your business model down and show that you have some more work to do. So we're looking at around 7 minutes for each of the in-person pitches. Any other questions? No questions? I know we didn't answer everything well. Is there an advantage for the, okay. Is there an advantage for those that pitch in person? Okay, I just answered that. Love Nola. Oh, for you from Louisiana. Okay, well, perfect. I'm hoping to see you there then. Looking forward to hearing more about your business. Can you go over the prizes? James, can you go over the prizes that we're looking to give out?
Absolutely. So first place is $5,000 cash prize. We will also be bringing that first place or pitch contest winner out to Massachusetts to tour our Netta cultivation processing as well as our dispensaries. You also get a 2-day in-person workshop and strategic planning sessions with our legal, HR, and accounting departments. And then there is also a MCBA membership for that pitch contest winner as well. Second place is 2,500, I believe. It's 2,500. Still have the opportunity to get some of Parallel's resources and for us to help tighten that business plan or help with the specific needs of the company with essentially a virtual day-long, workshop and strategic planning with the same departments, with our HR, legal, as well as accounting teams. And that also is included with a MCBA membership. And then third place is a $1,000 prize. We still are offering a half day workshop and strategic planning sessions with our departments, as well as there's a MCBA a membership included in that as well.
Perfect. Joanne asked a really great question. She said, can you guys give us a demo on a pitch for a cultivation facility? So that's really interesting. When it comes down to cultivation, all right. I think it would be really interesting if you came up and said, we're creating a brand campus for Black-owned businesses in the cannabis space. We're establishing cutting edge and innovative practices when it comes to lighting, irrigation, triple stack canopy, and making sure that we're optimizing and making sure our cultivation process is the most efficient in the land. And here goes the reasons why our facility has done this. We proved it on a small scale in our 1,500 square foot facility by growing 3 times as much product in that same facility for that particular time. And now we're able to scale that to our 75,000 square foot facility, which would result in X amount of pounds, resulting in X amount of millions of dollars over the next year. And we understand the cost of pounds and grams that we're going to be selling to the next individual. So I think having that kind of pitch, highlighting, what you're doing that's different, how you can innovate the market, if there's ways to make your cultivation facility more efficient and produce more product for the dollar is important. And then show that you have a relationship with, if you're not a fully vertically integrated business, show that you have relationships with all of the distribution points for the product that you're going to be delivering. But I look forward to hearing more about your product and your cultivation facility, Joanne. Brandon, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I'm looking at a question from a JM. Who's JM? What's the same name here? Mr. Joanne, is that Joanne Morning, the pitch conference? So I'm looking at the next one, AM Rose.
Okay.
Cinco is a website blog-based business, not a product or service related, appropriate for this pitching contest. When I think of what a website or blog does, it communicates information. It drives people. It's a tool that can distribute other products or services. And depending on the reach or the value proposition, the unique value proposition to the market, you could be the next Weed Maps. And there's a different kind of understanding in what a website or blog can help do: communicate information, move patients, move clients that becomes of value to folks that want to sell products to those folks that patron that page. So understanding how a website or blog is intended to function, or in more particular, I would be interested to hear who the market base is, but if proven with enough fanfare, patronage, data metrics come into the contest, especially with data metrics for that blog and idea and why it would be successful. I'm sure that folks could want to advertise on that or it could be so influential or so moving. It could be a how to do anything, right? Blog, dosing or something, how to dose properly, how to do a lot of things, right? And that could not possibly be something that the judges find that a large company would want to have in their wheelhouse, because a lot of folks can't market in cannabis, similar to tobacco. And even though we can see Captain Morgan's commercials on TV, what we don't see is tobacco commercials on TV, even though you used to see a lot of tobacco billboards and stuff like that. So where do people advertise for those folks? On websites and blogs that do what? Possibly talk about tobacco aficionados. I don't know, things that authorize that to happen. So if you can show the right market, you can show the right use, you can develop the unique value proposition, the data metrics behind the website or blog, and show why it should win and why it's disruptive to the market. I don't see why not.
Yeah, and Leafly was a blog initially, I believe, right? And they're a multi-million dollar, almost billion-dollar company at this point. So it's very interesting that you asked that question. So I think you'll be able to, if you're able to attract people to the page, then advertising and data and metrics will go a long way. We always ask, how do you monetize data? And a couple companies have done that pretty well. So look at this, Brandon.
How much does data cost? I've been asking this question for years. How much does data cost? But that's important. How you keep the data, how you capture the data, how you get out ahead of it, how you show market dominance. Yeah, I think a website or blog is a little deeper than folks think.
Absolutely. All right. Any other questions? Seeing something pop up. What is the best way to get non-novel products on the shelves of retailers and MSOs? James, that's your question.
I would say try to tap into people like myself. Every MSOs at this point, if they are not doing something in the social equity space, they should be. Most of the big MSOs are doing something, right? Curaleaf has their program. All these different companies have their programs. I think the biggest thing about cannabis, and Todd, you can correct me if I'm wrong. You will find that folks like myself, folks like Todd, folks like Brandon, we will find a way to go out and go out of our way to make sure that we can try to help someone who is trying to get their product on the shelf of like an MSO, right? Specifically, what I'm doing at Parallel is finding ways to broaden the diversity of our suppliers, right? Which means not only partnering with Black and brown operators in the space and making sure we're getting their products on the shelf, but also folks from capital projects, which is where most of our funds go, right? So I would say tap into someone in a similar role to myself, someone in a corporate responsibility role, but also build the following, right? I mean, I think everybody can attest to the fact that if you look at the way that artists are being signed today, right? They're coming to these labels with 20 million followers, with this many people already listening to their music, right? You have to think about your product the same way. So if you have people that are aware of your product, specifically in the region that you've launched or into the MSOs that you're trying to get your product on the shelf, create the buzz. If you create a big enough buzz, I guarantee they will end up reaching out to you rather than you reaching out to them.
Absolutely. And the last question is from Gino Francis. How would you approach a dispensary or register organization in NYC, specifically the Bronx, being that New York is fully legalized? When you say, how would you approach a dispensary? Are you looking to get your product on the shelf? When you say register your organization, are you looking to get licensed as a business in New York? And, as New York is becoming recreationally legal, there's going to be, obviously from the Cannabis Commission, they're going to put out some language and rules, regulations, and a process for you to register your business in New York. So I'm not sure what that question is leaning towards. Is it how do you get on, or how do you get your products in dispensaries, or how do you register your business in cannabis in New York? So it's a broad question, and I'm not sure if we could break that
Sounds
down.
like they want a license. That's
Okay,
what it sounds like.
this is for this person. I'm really excited to answer Ms. Augustine's answer too. But for Gino Francis, you would start a business. You would start an LLC. You would learn how starting a business works. This is not me being egotistical. If you don't understand how to form a company in New York, which is one of the hardest places to form and maintain different types of companies, you're at a disadvantage. Having that company formed right now may or may not be beneficial to your investors or whatnot, but it may or may not be, as even what Ms. Augustine's answer ties into, it may or may not be relevant to how you in advance apply for social equity points and preferences and designations that come from small business entities, minority business entities, and things like that before the application period. So you're not doing 5 things at one time. That may or may not appeal to an investor. That may or may not appeal to other business partners. But it is a step that if you took in advance and you kept an open operating agreement and open books and just paid the bare minimums to get through that process, could put you in a position of prominence. And so those things you should look at. And being that NYC is fully legalized, I don't know what all the levels of what you believe fully legalized will mean, and how you understand how companies will be selected to do so. But you truly should understand the core elements of forming a business and capital raising, and possibly pay attention to some of these pitches and stuff like that, keep up with it, because it's very similar to set up yourself to be selected to be invested in, or be selected for good folks that can qualify to be in your company, be on your team, be in your application. So the other question, Ms. Augustine's question, if there's time for this question, I'd love to know the panel's thoughts on how regulators can support social equity efforts. I know this isn't the topic of today's talk, and I'm not the target audience for this event. I hope you're the target audience. You're a researcher for a state regulator. Great. So if it isn't appropriate, please disregard this request. This is super appropriate. Number one, the barriers to allowing regulations to be released before they understand things like what was answered for Mr. Francis, how social equity points are applied, how the traditional minority certification business entity processes are applied, and making sure that regulators hold votes, request studies, disparity studies, request that the policy gaps between these entities that serve to enforce and regulate minority servicing certifications that allow preference points are involved and at the table, so they're not placed off the board. But now I'm gonna shift gears and go to a whole nother level. Chicago is giving away, sold $1 billion in cannabis. They don't have one quote unquote Black dispensary. This is the tagline right now, right? They sold $1 billion in cannabis. They don't have one Black dispensary. I went to Howard Law. The sole regulator for Illinois is my classmate. Her name was Danielle Perry. And so how does this happen, right? It happens in different ways, but what's even bigger than that in Chicago and Illinois is understanding that all the money, that $1 billion that was extra tax, just goes into the general state fund. It goes into the general mental health fund. It goes into the general jailing fund. So the same policies and practices that lock minorities up, that discriminate against us in banking and housing and arrest now, receive the benefit of these tax dollars that are supposed to be specially allocated in tax for social equity efforts. So speaking with regulators about understanding the power of the purse and controlling the penny, not just to the agency, but down to the policies that the cannabis tax money should be used to affect change, is really, really important, Ms. Augustine.
As well as technical assistance and access to capital. I know some of the states are doing funds that folks can tap into. They need attorneys. It's really difficult and sometimes painstaking to go through the application process. So all of those things being, providing those resources and support for folks as well would be pretty good. All right. Any other questions? Is the pitch content or these types of contests appropriate for homemade edibles businesses? How can informal entrepreneurs get into the formal industry as the regulation changes?
You can
Absolutely.
develop the magic butter machine. You can develop ancillary things that help transport or help people make home edibles faster, better, stronger. And you too can be a Mercedes millionaire, Mr. Frankie, Miss Frankie, if you're already not so. I know a great guy, Garen Angel, and he took a machine that he developed for. I actually had, and Todd had Mr. Angel sleeping on the streets of McPherson Square, rats crawling all over us. I don't know how many years ago, Veterans Day. So it's important to remember that. My memory is bad. I'm a wily old veteran. Sorry, y'all. But Garen Angel created this machine because his homeboy had cancer and he needed to get the extracts from botanical plants into his body and know how to get access to plants that the extract and make a butter of it. And so he took and developed with his homeboys something that was totally for something different. It was not at all intended to make cannabis butter. This is not what the benefit of this extraction machine was designed for. And then it turns around and that's the magic butter machine worth I don't know how many $1 billion that you may or may not have at home. So when you look at, is this pitch contest for the type of context for homemade edibles businesses? It depends on if you're trying to, make people buy edibles with the THC in it or not, or create a transport device, or if you can have things that make it easier or more accommodating for people to incorporate cannabis into their diet, because it's important that our cannabidiol system receive it as food and not just smoking. So absolutely, Mr. or Mrs. Mercedes.
Absolutely. And the last question we have is, what is available on stage for presenting visuals, digital or otherwise? There will be, I'll say, access to HDMI so that you can project and present. And so you'll be able to show slides and such, videos, so forth and so on. So I think you'll have what you need to pitch. And yeah, pre competition, once you register, we'll reach out and get more information about what your needs are, and then we'll make sure that we accommodate the day of the pitch. All right. It is 8:05. I got to get back to my beautiful newborn. She was born 4 days ago, so she's downstairs crying. I got to go figure it out. But I appreciate everybody's time. And Miss Augustine, I seen you drop something here, so I'm definitely gonna capture that before we close out. But it says if you're up for connecting and possibly sharing more or pointing to resources, here's how you can reach me. Miss Augustine sent her LinkedIn. I'm working to better understand the challenges of our minority and female business owners. That is amazing. So we look forward to connecting with you. And it looks like you're in Colorado, so we'll definitely touch base very soon. And thank you, AM Rose. Yep, it's time to get it done. But I appreciate everyone's time. James, you always drop jewels. Brandon, you know what it is. Back to work tomorrow, even though it's Veterans Day. Shout out to all the veterans. Thank you all for your service. And thank you all for attending today. Look forward to seeing you in New Orleans. All right now.